So you know when you really hate something, like really, really, really despise it, but from a business point of view, it makes a hell of a lot of sense. So your boy is starting a TikTok. Yeah, I finally bit the bullet. And anyway, if you do enjoy short style content or have enjoyed some of the shorts I've already uploaded on this channel, the link for it is down in the description below, so go and check it out. Now into the actual video. Anyway, hey there guys, I'm Will, welcome to FP1 and the comedy review, as F1 headed to Hungary for the last race before the summer break. The race in 2021 was one of the best of the season. Mercedes went from taking on Max Verstappen to taking out Max Verstappen. Lewis Hamilton showed all the DTS fans what watching F1 in 2014 was like, and Esteban Ocon reminded everyone that he was still in F1 by winning his first Grand Prix. There's a lot to touch on this week, so let's get into the comedy review. For the Hungarian Grand Prix.
We are a fucking bunch of wankers.
There were lots of news stories doing the rounds this week, but perhaps the biggest one lied at Aston Martin. After 16 years in Formula 1, Sebastian Vettel had a new rear wing on his car, and perhaps most shockingly, it hadn't been copied from anyone else on the grid. The other Formula 1 teams, as usual, weren't pleased with Aston coming up with something they hadn't thought of first, but warmed to the new upgrade when they remembered it was only Aston Martin. Sticking with Sebastian Vettel, he was also in the news this week for announcing that he had a Lego-themed helmet for Hungary. Rumour has it that he had the Strolls build it to keep them out of engineering meetings. Come to think of it, Seb was actually in the news a lot this week, as was his protege Mick Schumacher, who would be racing the old Haas VF22 while his teammate Kevin Magnussen got the new upgrade package. Haas said this was down to a lack of spares, but my guess is they just prefer Mick to get the parts in Belgium due to the longer runoffs over there. So I think that's it for the news this week. Apart from Vettel, of course, retiring. Probably actually should have started with that, shouldn't I? Anyway, let's jump into the on-track action. And it was the familiar tinge of red adorning the top of the timing screens in FP1, as Carlos Sainz led Verstappen and Leclerc. It was a pretty quiet session all said and told, however one surprise was Lando Norris and Daniel Ricciardo, with the Briton P4 for McLaren, and the Aussie only half a second off his teammate this weekend. Smile through the pain, Will. Smile through the pain. FP2 would see the other Ferrari take top honours, with Leclerc P1 and both McLarens quick once again. One team that wouldn't be described as such though were Mercedes, who were having their worst Friday of the season. Lewis Hamilton at one stage 2 seconds off the pace, so I doubt they'll be able to turn that around. And another driver struggling was Alex Albon, who in the end decided just to give up on the session and instead spent the hour showing off to the fans at turn 1. That would be a mere prelude ahead of Saturday, however, as rain was inbound, and the weather wasn't playing around either, with several drivers being caught out by the conditions, most notably Charles Leclerc, who lost it coming down the hill but amazingly kept it out of the barrier. Also in FP3, Sebastian Vettel tried out retirement early when he spun off into the wall. Then again, I'd do that to get out of the Aston Martin as well. Though drivers were struggling with the conditions, one man had managed to rise above them all. A man who at one stage had the history of F1 at his fingertips. A man whose pursuit for the walls knows no bounds. Nicholas Latifi. With Charles Leclerc now fearing for his Ferrari seat, it was time to see if the Canadian, previously dubbed Stupid Man by Carlos Sainz in FP2, could repeat this feat in qualifying. Sadly though, he remembered he was Nicholas Latifi, and it was back to P20 on the grid for him. Latifi wasn't the only shock exit out of Q1, with Vettel and Tsunoda also out in the first session, but at least Seb can complain about it on social media now. Q2 was all about Sergio Perez. Having initially lost his lap time for track limits, the Mexican was sent out again on a fresh set of tyres. The race directors then did something that I didn't think was possible, and admitted that they made a mistake and reinstated Checo's lap. In the end, none of it would matter though, as he still failed to make it into Q3. The final part of quali seemed like it would be the Ferrari show, as they stamped their foot down early to take provisional pole with Carlos Sainz. Norris and the Alpines, however, looked surprisingly racy, as George Russell then revealed Mercedes had actually been sandbagging since the very start of the year and shot up onto the front row. Max Verstappen, meanwhile, was having far less fun in his Red Bull, complaining of power issues and earning the F1 bleep man his salary as he could only muster 10th for Sunday's Grand Prix. So, with Red Bull out of it, this pole was Ferrari's to lose, and since it was Ferrari, guess who lost it? Carlos Sainz looked to have done enough before a phenomenal final lap from Russell took the Brit to his first ever career pole position, leaving us all to wonder, how the hell did that happen? With an incredibly mixed up grid then, it would be to play for the Grand Prix on Sunday. Would George be able to take his first career win? Could Red Bull bounce back? And how on earth could Ferrari screw up their championship fight back this time? And I wrote that line on the train on Sunday morning, not quite realising how much of a cock-up Ferrari would make of this weekend. But hold your prancing horses, we'll get to that later. The Grand Prix would get underway with a threat of rain in the air, as Russell held off an attack from Sainz down into turn 1, and Vettel made some modifications to Albon's new aero package. This gave us a virtual safety car, as whatever was left of Albon's front wing was cleared up from turn 2, and when we got going again, it didn't seem like the Ferrari pair got the memo, slipping back and allowing Russell to pull a 2-second lead. Max Verstappen, meanwhile, had managed to make it up to P8 behind the Alpines, and though Nando proved to be such a problem for Lewis last year, the Dutchman had no issues moving into 7th. P6 was even easier, as that was held by Esteban Ocon. The Dutchman was on the charge, and next up was his best buddy Lewis Hamilton, who was sizing up good old Nozza for 4th. When Lewis went for the move, Verstappen saw his opening, and the 2021 championship duo were now together on track. So you know what that means. Unfortunately, we'd be robbed of that drama as it was now pit stop time. Race leader Russell first to box from the soft tyres on lap 17. Ferrari, meanwhile, had started on fresh mediums, meaning they could have gone longer. Take note of the word could in that sentence. Oh no, Ferrari instead decided to go for a rather bizarre two-stop strategy, and since it took them 5 whole laps to make up their mind in Leclerc's case, the faster of the two Ferraris was now miles back given the strong undercut the Hungarian provides. Max would also pit here, managing to jump #blessed, avoiding a catastrophic accident. Anyway, while Charles used his newer tyres to catch back up to the leaders, Alpine were about to try something different on strategy, fitting the hard tyres, which turned out to be about as bad of a decision as signing Esteban Ocon to a multi-year contract. In fact, it was so bad of a decision, even Daniel Ricciardo was able to school them round the inside of turn 2. While myself and all the other fellow Danny fans smiled for the first time all year, it was back to Leclerc, who had got past Sainz and was now eyeing up George Russell for P1. After a fantastic dive down the inside on lap 31, it looked like Ferrari had pulled out the strategic masterclass of the century. But oh boy, how that would soon change. Besides Yuki Tsunoda being Yuki Tsunoda, the race would settle down until the front runners pit again on lap 40. George onto a new set of mediums, but Leclerc onto the hards, despite seeing how well that went for Alpine. But now though, that would be the least of their worries, as Max Verstappen was still on the charge and passed Leclerc, taking the effective race lead. The Dutchman must have loved this overtake so much he decided he wanted to do it again, spinning a lap later and allowing the Monegasque back through. Don't fret though, because within 3 laps, P1 was his again. Leclerc's day would then get worse when George moved back ahead, demoting the Ferrari to 3rd, and with Hamilton now charging on soft tyres, the Scuderia decided to give up track position at a circuit where overtaking is notoriously difficult. You really can't make this up. With Leclerc now 6th and Verstappen comfortably up the road, Mercedes at least gave us a show by allowing its 2 drivers to race, Lewis making it past George to take P2. And when you thought the action was all over, Alfa Romeo realised neither of their cars had blown up yet, so corrected that on lap 68 when Bottas pulled over and caused a late VSC. This gave time for the rain to move in, which had been teasing the circuit all afternoon, but had never arrived, given that this is a Grand Prix weekend and that's sadly our luck at this point. So after 70 laps, Max Verstappen would go from 10th to 1st, taking yet another race win and further extending their gap over Mercedes. Yeah, the Scuderia don't exist for me anymore at this point. Oh, and Ricciardo crashed into Stroll, but we don't talk about that. Just blame McLaren for being another team to put the hards on despite everyone else struggling. You know what, let's just move on. So all said and done, that wasn't such a bad weekend. Lots of good overtaking in action, not going to complain with that. Ferrari have thrown their championship away yet again, but what did we really all expect? If Mushroom Man still has a job by Spa, I'll be shocked, but let's just see how this one plays out. We have the summer break now, but don't you guys worry. I'll be producing content on here and on TikTok throughout the next few weeks, so there'll be plenty to look forward to. If you haven't already, make sure you're subscribed to the channel and drop this video a like if you've enjoyed it. A big thank you as always goes to my patrons as well for making all this possible. And if you want to help out in that regard, the link along with those to all my other socials can be found down in the description below. Anyway, that's all from me. I'll see you soon with another video, but until then, have a good one.